All right. Good morning, fellow hat nerds. It is Sunday. Sunday fun day. All right. I am caffeinated today. I got up, moped around until I got some actual coffee in my system, managed to get a couple administrative things done, and I was able to actually go out for my walk that I've been trying to do. Um, for those folks that kind of have been following the segment, you guys know I've been trying to make some more healthy choices in terms of my lifestyle. Um, I'm somebody that loves walking. I got away from it, and I just recently moved. Now I'm starting to get back into the spirit of walking, and it's been tremendous. I don't know if this hat chat series would even happen if I didn't actually get back to walking. Um, as per, I guess, usual, or I'm going to try to make it more customary to start off with the hat. Today's hat of the day. I mean, if you recall yesterday, I had a Moore's Homburg that was a little controversial in terms of like when it was made. Didn't really care. I love the hat anyway. This one, less controversial. I know exactly more or less when it was made, or at least it's originally sold, because I actually have the original receipt. So the size tag, as you can tell, there is as per usual for a lot of hats of this vintage, are had fallen off. But what has I managed to keep and acquire with the hat. Let me see if I can do this without knocking over the camera. But you can see this is a hat, a Homburg that was originally purchased from Jen Patterson's, I'm assuming, hats over in Sacramento, California, it looks like. And if you look at that date, what's very clear is the month, 9, so that would be September, and it's either September 2nd or September 7th. But what's very clear is the 1957. 1957. So what we have is a Homburg that is it's approaching 68 years old, if my math is mathing. And as appropriate, it's a Dobbs 15 Homburg. So you can see the original price, $15, plus 60 cents tax. All right, makes you kind of wish we were living back in 1957, doesn't it? Besides the fact that it was probably widely considered the golden era of the United States. So obviously, hats were still alive and kicking, or probably starting to go on the wayside. But as we discussed yesterday, and probably a previous segment, that prosperity that economic boom that we saw in the U.S. post World War II, where folks all of a sudden now had more money, like disposable income, probably also led to the demise of hats. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it as a collector today. Wow, yeah. So as people started being able to afford cars, maybe if they didn't have a car, they now have a car. If they already had a car, they now were able to maybe purchase a second car or what have you. Yeah, I think that is wild that those two events are related. But yeah, I couldn't remember. I know everybody loves to hear how did I come about this hat. I don't remember. I'm just really super glad that I was able to come by the hat. I honestly don't know. This might have been an online sale, but the fact that the person who sold me the hat had the presence of mind to know that I would want that original receipt if it was available. I don't think I have another hat where I have the original purchase receipt. So needless to say, this hat, besides looking fantastic, I do love Homburgs. But the fact that I was able to actually procure not just a hat, But I was actually able to get the original receipt, right? So I mean, I think in terms of the allure of a lot of the hats, there are specific threads, well, many posts and even dedicated threads on the Fedora Lounge to dating accurately as we can, dating the origin or what year. I think most folks are happy to know if they're able to drill down to either the year, the exact year, or some sort of small range, right? So I wore this past week, I wore a Borsalino velour, which is kind of on that like vintage, depending on who you ask. But that I think I was only able to get a specific range based on the current knowledge base, and I think that was early to mid 70s. It's okay. I'm just fine. I am just dandy with that. But I'm pleased as punch to be able to have a genuine vintage hat. And again, I actually posted this to, but this is probably the first hat chat segment that I was able to, in good conscience, post to the Facebook group, the I Love Vintage Hats pre-1960, only because this is just one of those pieces. I do have, others, at least one more that I can genuinely post on that forum. But I try to keep to the spirit, even though, like, I don't know if the admins are really that strict in terms of like if a '60s hat is really like a clear violation. But them's the rules. I have a lot of other Facebook groups that I'm a member of, so I'm gonna try to abide by the rules to the best degree possible. And if I break them, it'll be for a good reason. But for those folks, if we do have folks that see that post, if you don't end up joining here while I'm live, and end up finding this post after the fact, after we stop going live, welcome to the chat. Just to kind of get you up to speed. If you haven't seen my posts on the Fedora Lounge or one of the other Facebook groups that you might happen to be a member of, this series is a long time coming. This is something that I've always wanted to do ever since I got into hats. But I just never got around to it. There was always something else that got in the way in my mind, right? There really isn't a whole lot to it to be able to create all of this. But ultimately, what led to this probably is my decision. So a lot of it is life happening. So I just recently moved. For those folks that kind of know me from the Fedora Lounge or know me from the Facebook groups, you might know that I had I don't know, I had, depending on who you ask, a pretty nice looking, to me, it was nice looking hat wall. But we moved and really liked the new place, except that my hat wall had to come down and all my hats had to get moved, which was kind of a pain in itself. But really liking this new place and my new kind of like office setup. Now I've just been like, okay, I took advantage of the fact that I'm now in new surroundings to say, okay, how do I want this, this office to look? And I just taking a little step back just to say, do I want to resurrect the hat wall? I now have a standing desk, so that has implications, right? So I might do some live stream standing, in which case that will kind of impact the placement of the hat wall, right? So, I try to keep things at eye level when I, when I can, only because I feel like that's how it should be. And maybe I'll still stick with that. Maybe I'll keep it at eye level more or less when I'm standing. And who knows, you might just see the bottom of the hat. I don't know where it will turn out. We'll see. I'll try to come up with something that my brain will be happy with. But that doesn't always work out. I also had my old photos, right? So I kind of kept my office themed with only photos of things related to hats. And usually it was some sort of movie thing. So my centerpiece in the old office was Michael Corleone. It's a classic scene where he's wearing a flat cap when he's out in Sicily. and hiding out. So for those folks that were fans of the movie, you kind of know exactly what I mean. You'll have the picture in your head. I remember seeing that photo just casually shopping, and I said, "That's mine." I hope it's not $1 million because I'm buying. Unless it's $1 million, I'm buying it. So I was just pleased as punch. I mean, you can imagine some middle-aged guy like itching to come home and show off his find, right? So that's exactly what happened, and immediately went up on the wall and became the centerpiece of my office. I also managed to add, I think, folks that are either really big fans or like actually were around during the time of the Rat Pack. I have a really great photo from one of the famous Rat Pack movies, and it's falling. Like the movie is not coming to mind right now, but I'm sure somebody when I do actually get that back up on the wall or somewhere and I show it off, somebody will tell me right away what the movies are. Sometimes they do kind of all blend together. And then finally, I had the classic Rocky photo. I believe this one was from like Rocky 2, because I feel like the leather jacket was like after Rocky had already fought Apollo Creed and he got a little bit of money and he had this leather jacket. It was a really sharp look. Now, again, the hat that Sylvester Stallone has spoken about this hat and the story behind the hat, right? A couple things. One was this hat, from, if I'm not butchering this story, this hat was a hat that Stallone kind of found at like a local stand. I want to say like I'm just gonna go because I'm originally from New York. I'm just gonna go in and maybe hopefully not stretch the truth too much, but I think it was like one of those like kind of Korean vendors that you typically find in a lot of urban areas, right? So like if you're in New York, you know, Chinatown will have a lot of vendors. They're not all Chinese, but a lot of them are. But it's one of those vendors that, you know, will have hats. So they're probably not the best quality hats. I'm looking at the hat right now, like at the corner of my eye. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Let me go grab that photo. I have it here. Let me just grab it. Okay. So this is the photo that I'm referring to right here. So I mean, I'm getting some reflection here from my screen monitor. So hopefully that doesn't throw anybody off. But this photo, I want to say it's from Rocky 2. It could be from the original Rocky movie. But that hat, right? And for my fellow hat nerds, you kind of know what immediately jumps out, right? You see the cross, right? I mean, I have my pie chain. I mean, I don't know if I was influenced indirectly by this Rocky photo, but it is a classic look. And I don't know. Again, when I saw this pie chain, obviously it's not a cross; it's just a mathematical symbol of pi. But I got to think that maybe this Rocky photo or this image, right? So I got this pie chain before I even got this Rocky image. But when I saw it, I'm like, I identified immediately. It just looks, it ties his look together, right? The other thing that you'll notice is his hat tilt. I don't know where Sylvester Stallone, I can't tell you. I know he spoke about the hat tilt, but and the process behind the hat tilt, if you like see some video of him talking about the hat and the hat story. But that hat tilt is classic. It's like a throwback look, right? Everybody kind of knows the old Rat Pack song, "A Hat's Not a Hat Till It's Tilted." I think it's a Dean Martin, right? The old Dino hit. But you know, it's a classic hat tilt look. And again, both Rocky, the Rocky 1 and Rocky 2 were things that came out from the, I believe, 1976 and 77, late 70s. And it was just a throwback look. Again, I know Stallone had ties to Philadelphia. This might have just been something that folks in Philadelphia that actually still were wearing hats. That was the look. But when you see it, it's an iconic look. It really brings you back to like, wow, something about that screams hat culture. Like that was no accident, right? We all know about the hat tilt, you know. I actually saw a great photo on the Fedora Lounge of a Stetson example of a slanted hat. I thought that was wild. I had no idea that even existed. I'd like to know when that existed. I mean, that might have been already covered in that post, but I don't recall. But you know, you can imagine that that style it has to have evolved, right? That idea have to have evolved from the idea that you know a hat's not a hat till it's tilted, right? So Stetson being the ever great marketer, they're like, well, maybe some people don't want to actually tilt their hat. We will build the hat with already a tilt on it, and we'll just give it something called the slant. So the Stetson slant was born. I thought that was. I don't know how successful that was, to be honest. If anybody knows that the history behind the slant, the Stetson slant, hopefully I'm not butchering that. But yeah, I'd love to know. Like I had no idea that existed until just this past day or so. But you know, that's one of the many reasons I hop onto Facebook groups and especially the Fedora Lounge because there's just so many unique hats that that you'll find, and usually, again, like where I posted this on the "What hat are you wearing today?" I just love that thread because one, it just so captures the spirit, I think, of the type of collector and hat, you know, wearer, you know, that I am. The idea that these things were meant to be worn, right? They weren't meant to hang up on a wall, right? At least not forever. And again, no offense to those folks who have their wall queens or whatever you refer to them. You know, but for me, I'm like, even though I have way more hats than I could probably cycle through in any given week, I try to. You know, again, we all have our favorites, like I mentioned in the past stream, but it doesn't mean that you don't try your best to try to cycle through the hats. Again, depending on what your type of hat collector you are. You know, I have got to imagine that with some of the collections that you see, that there's no way somebody could wear. It would just be, again, it would kind of beg the question about this idea of the paradox of choice, right? Sometimes too much choice is just not. We covered that that notion, and hopefully that is not such the case with folks that have even many times bigger collections than I have. I already have that problem. I mentioned that yesterday, I think, that my collection's gotten to the point where it's like, okay, now I'm starting to delay things like going out on my walk because I want to pick out the right hat for that day. It's not super difficult, but it does have some. There are some veracity to that. So anyway, that's just something that you know, as this community grows, and obviously I have some of those answers already answered for me on the Fedora Lounge, but I'd like to have conversations like that in real time. You know, and one thing that I mentioned prior that I'm going to repeat is that I don't want to be the only guy here in front of you talking. You know, we are in the, you know, we're 2025. We have the ability to stream and connect in real time with other folks. If I can do that, I already put out the invite to several folks, right? One was just yesterday, Kevin Gerber, the YouTuber hatter behind Hats and Guitars, also around KTG hats. I put out the invite. You know, he's a pretty busy guy now that he's has his own hat company, but if he was able to come on here and share his knowledge, and as well as just those folks that don't want to be in front of camera and they just want to post a comment and share some of their knowledge and some of their just pontifications, you know, as a more seasoned collector than myself and then I do welcome that. And one thing I also don't want to neglect is our brand new hat, folks, right? Again, we talked about the fact that it was a gift and a curse that the greater hat culture has waned since like let's just call it the 60s, since the Kennedy administration. But there were good reasons behind it. But the silver lining is that we've now created this room for this subculture that has blossomed, right? And then we see it on the Fedora Lounge, we see it on the various Facebook groups, that hats are very much alive and well in 2025. And it just, we're a little bit smaller than we used to be, a little bit less mainstream. So now, whereas you kind of would look like an oddball back in the day with going out without a fine hat on your head, now you're kind of the the oddball when you do. And I'm so interested in finding out, especially for the folks that are not like seasoned hat nerds. If I'm really curious as to whether there's like some sort of subliminal or maybe even overt hat, I guess some hat fear about going out, right? You might have a collection. Let's say you have a closet hat nerd, right, that has this wild collection, but will never go out in them because they just don't want to be looked at. And I mentioned that before, is that because this is a subculture, you will be looked at, for better or worse. I try to just take it in stride and just, I figure the more folks that people get exposed to that wear hats, the better. And maybe we can normalize this thing, and who knows, maybe there'll be a resurgence in hat culture, and it will grow from this subculture that still exists. Again, that will also probably be a gift and a curse, right? I think what I don't want to see happen is something akin to what we've seen with this ridiculous Pokemon craze that we're seeing right now. No offense to the Pokemon folks. I happen to know several Pokemon crazy collectors. I just don't want to see a situation like we're seeing now, where somebody will have a hat for sale, and then you got two hat collectors punching each other out in the middle of the street in order to buy this hat. Nobody wants to see that. I mean, as entertaining as that might be for the average TikTok or social media consumer, because I feel like, the old adage, everybody loves to see the train wreck. They're like the rubberneckers, right? It's like, oh man, that's something. I don't want to see that happen to like this subculture. I like to think that the fine hats will make for fine collectors, and there'll be that level of civility that I've always seen on the Facebook groups and definitely on the Fedora Lounge. I just think that the gentleman or gentle person culture should be a thing. And that actually brings me to another point, is that you can't help but notice there's a bunch of guys into this hobby. And you kind of as a I don't know what you would say, as a hopeful kind of collector, you'd like to see that expand, to see a lot more female participation in this hobby, as well as minors, in terms of like younger folk. Younger folk that are really into this hobby, because that's the future, right? You don't want to see this hat subculture die because it was too geared to us, the middle-aged and those that are beyond middle-aged. And because we are old enough to have had a relative, I posted my first Facebook post, and I talked about yesterday about my granddad, who was a hat guy. I never got to meet him, so he didn't influence me directly. But I gotta say that my dad had always told me stories about my granddad, so it would be his dad, and how he never went anywhere without a hat. And I think that kind of somehow had an influence. But with that said, I don't know if this channel can serve as an influence. I don't know how Fedora Lounge will work in that, but I feel like we as kind of ambassadors to this community, because regardless of whether or not you feel and are formally bestowed upon, because this hat community is so small, no matter what you do, if you put this on, if you go outside and you put on this hat, you are an ambassador of this community, whether you know it or not. So when you interact with your fellow man, even if they're, regardless of what you think, you are influencing their opinions about people that wear hats. I know that sounds silly, and maybe it is silly. Maybe I'm making this complete up, but I feel like it's a thing. And I think that should, people rise to the level of expectation that you set for them. And I feel like if I bring that message out and somebody views this and had not had that thought, that now that does influence them when they go outside and they're not like, the get off my lawn, kind of guy or gal or person, because we don't need that. Like, this world is full of enough jerks, and we don't need any more jerks, especially jerks in hats, because again, people already probably think certain things. I know when they look at me, they probably have a certain idea of what kind of person I am, and they probably are wrong. And I'm happy. Like, it's a little funny, and I'm like really chuckle when I'm able to kind of shatter that initial impression by actually engaging and trying to be good Luke or good Lukes, and make this hat thing something that's welcoming, a community that's welcoming to new folks and to younger folks, because I don't want to see this die. And part of me knows that it probably won't die. This is too great of a hobby, and too great of a thing, I think, to die. I don't think like watches. I don't think the watch subculture and the people that are into watches, I don't think that'll ever die. I think it's just too good. I feel the same way about hats, but again, I've been wrong about many things. Why not be wrong about this too? We got a viewer. Welcome. I don't know how you found this. If you feel free to post a comment. I don't know if you had seen any of this. Hey, Morgan. What's up, Morgan? I know you. Yes, from Hats and Guitars. Morgan, welcome. Yes, I love your hats. Thank you and welcome. Yeah, Morgan, I gotta tell you, I gotta ask you, we were just talking about like new folks, and I think, Morgan, you're in New York City? Oh, thank you. And the sir thing you don't need to do, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the thought, yeah, good to see you too. I seen your photos, and we have the connection through Kevin. Kevin's a great dude, isn't he? That guy is, speaking of like true ambassadors for the community. I think his channel, right? I mentioned this in in one of my previous segments. I'm like, Kevin's channel probably inspired my channel the most, because one, he does it the right way. Yeah, I'm in the East Village, Manhattan. All right. Well, I'm a Brooklyn boy to begin with. I'm in the DC area now, but born and raised in Brooklyn. So New York City, hat mecca. I referred to it before. Like, somebody might think otherwise, but until I kind of like somebody is able to convince me otherwise, for me, New York City will be at least hat mecca for the United States, maybe even the world, right? So one could argue otherwise in terms of like the great hat companies, but at least domestically, New York City will always be hat mecca for me, until I get data that says otherwise. Yeah, I was raised in Canarsie. All right, a fellow Brooklynite. Okay. Okay, excellent. Well, great. I appreciate you. I love having you part of this. And like I said, if you haven't had a chance to subscribe, definitely please do hit the notification icon, only because that will help grow the channel and it will also help you find out when I go live next. But one question I had for you, Morgan, if you have time to stay with us for just a little bit, was when and what got you into wearing I'm going to say fine hats, right? Because I just want to make a distinction. I've been saying fine hats, but I'm just trying to distinguish between the baseball caps and the trucker hats that you kind of see all over the place nowadays in terms of like where people that think about hats. All right, thank you for subbing. I appreciate it. Yeah, I do the same. I've been a YouTuber for so long, and it's kind of how it's one of the major ways, right? Kevin's channel, as well as a few others, have been the major ways that I've kind of learned and kind of been ensconced into hat culture. So yeah, Facebook and the Fedora Lounge are two other ways. Yeah, man, YouTube is so powerful. And I'm really thankful that I finally got this underway, because again, I don't know how big, I probably will never get to become, any kind of like get real traction. But right now, just the fact that you joined, I'm already like, this is a success to me. Because, I like the interactions that we do on Facebook, but they're a little bit more impersonal, right? So like you post, I post, we get posted by Kevin, of course, and a lot of the other, I'm going to call us regulars. But, we don't really get together that often. Yeah, I used to wear baseball caps and I had yearned for a cowboy hat. Okay, because, but my hairstyle of choice was dreadlocks at the time, and I couldn't wear that type of headwear. After cutting my locks, let's see if I try this. Oh, I probably just cut you off. I'll wait for you to finish your thought. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. After cutting my locks, you went, I'm assuming, I'll let you finish that. It takes 30 seconds. I had put 30 seconds at the limit for a thing, only because I just figured if we ever get a troll in here, the 30-second mark might give me enough to like ban them before like they make a complete ass out of me and everybody else, a big mockery. But I'll let you finish that thought. I'm already like, that's super intriguing. Yeah. I think that probably applies to a lot of folks, right? Kevin used to have really long hair. Okay, it's like after cutting my locks, I bought a Stetson Revenger and didn't like the wide brim width. I'm kind of in that camp too. The super wide brims, I talked about in a previous segment, that the super wide brims, while functional for like the sun, I don't think they look well for my face, So it's like a Stetson Revenger and didn't like the brim width. So I started exploring into fedoras, and boom, that's how I got into fine hats. Yay, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I don't know if I think I have one. My biggest brim hat is a hat I bought from Kevin. I call it the Carmen Sandiego hat. If you've seen some of my posts, I'll bring that hat on. It's a modern hat. I got several hats from Kevin because he's just a super dude. And when he was selling in his vintage hats, he had great deals on them. And I'm like, I can't afford not to buy it, right? I still haven't bought one of his own hat line. That's going to happen eventually, I got to think. As he starts like refining, like I've already seen several hats that like, oh, okay, I don't know how I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I will. It's just, he's super to deal with. And like I said, his YouTube channel is a big inspiration for mine. But yeah, Stetson Revenger. I love the name. I don't know if I'm familiar with that model, but I love the names. That's one of the things where like you start learning kind of like car models, right? There's no secret that, why Kevin chose to give his hats like models of cars, the Galaxy, right? You rock Homburg very well. You made me want to explore hat. Oh, you definitely got to. Oh yeah, I think you look really good in a Homburg, to be honest. I think I used to have 3 Homburgs. So you'll see, like I talked about, like parting ways with one of them. So I have a buddy on Facebook that I call him a client, but he's kind of a, I'm thinking he's like right into the friend territory, but I never met him personally. He's in Utah, and he bought one of my hats prior. He saw my pictures and wanted to buy one of my hats. And you seem like I post a bunch of pictures. I don't really consider myself a hat seller. It's just basically how it happens when you're a collector, when somebody really wants the hat probably more than you do. And you're like, yeah, I mean, if you make me a fair offer, I'm like, I'll give it a new home. It sounds like you want it more than I do. And so this gentleman in Utah, I won't reveal his identity just in case, but yeah, super, super great guy. And he saw one of my Homburgs. It was funny because the photo that he posted was a complete mockery. Like, so I'm a big fan of the New York Mets, so back to my New York ties. And when we were in the playoffs last season, I was gathering with my fellow Mets fans in the DC area. And we were losing one of the games. And everybody knows, like, if you wear a baseball cap and you're a baseball fan, there's the rally cap, right? So there's a cap, you have your baseball cap and you turn it inside out, right? And then you put it back on, and it's supposed to be giving you good luck, and hopefully your team comes back and wins the game. I'm not doing that to my Homburg or any of my fedoras. I'm not turning them inside out. I don't even know if they're able to, but I wouldn't do it. So I just took I looked at the Homburg, and I'm like, okay, how do I stay and like commiserate with my fellow baseball fan, my Mets fans? So I took the Homburg off, and I literally put it upside down on my hat, on my head. So, and then I snapped a photo because I'm like, I don't know. Ended up working. I think we won that game. And like all my fellow DC Mets fans that were with me, like, oh, it was the fedora, it was the rally fedora. I'm like, well, technically Homburg, but we'll call it the rally fedora. So that's how the rally fedora was born. So I snapped a photo and I posted it on my DC Mets group and like several Mets chats. And I don't know if I've ever shared it on the actual Facebook groups, but yeah, I did share. That's how this gentleman found it. He saw one of my posts and saw that. Yeah, I thought it was really wild because out of all the photos, that's the one that he went and he saw, like, oh, this one's interesting. Like, will you sell this one? And I'm like, well, I like that one, but how much, make me an offer. And then he ended up buying it. Like, he came up with a really fair price. And I was like, holy cow. Like, and I still have that photo though. And like, that was a Dobbs Golden Coach, right? So with Golden Coach, Dobbs released those in the 1960s. I think they might have re-released it in later decades. So you do find more modern Golden Coach series, but it's a classic series that Dobbs released. That the original run, I believe, was from the 1960s. And I found this example, and it was like, I wore that hat so often and that's why I had to tell this gentleman, was that, listen, man, if you buy one of my hats, just know that I'm going to wear them. Like, you're not going to find too many wall queens. Some of my hats just happen to be like in really pristine condition because somehow, some way, my stupid sweat glands have not ruined the headband. But I'll wear fedoras. Like, I think I have one straw hat that's a no-name brand that I bought in Croatia. But other than that, I have all felt hats. Some of them like a mix of vintage, mostly vintage, but also modern ones. And I wear the hats. Like, you'll see me. I don't care if I'm sweating it up. I am wearing those hats. So when somebody says, "Hey, what? Can I buy the hat?" I'm like, "Hey, just so you know, it's not like I don't have any show queens in my collection. Like, they're all hats that I try to wear." And I will take photos and say, hey, just make sure that you know what you're getting. Only because I don't want anybody like this gentleman's in Utah. I didn't want him to open up that package and be surprised that the sweatband, again, it wasn't really that bad. It just had cracks. Like, I think, I've yet to own a straw hat. I'm wearing Mikhail of Huffbud, to make me one. Wanting. Yeah, Mikhail's hats are awesome. Yes. Huffbud hats are so great. It's another, like, I haven't really bought any hats from a lot of the folks, but Huffbud, super nice guy, and his hats are amazing. I think he has a YouTube channel as well. If I'm recalling correctly, I think he has a YouTube channel. But yeah, I mean, for me, like, I've been like shying away from the. So what I'll do is, like, maybe when I'm traveling, I've been traveling a lot more. Sometimes, like, I have family in Florida. So most of my family is in the New York, New Jersey area, but I do have some family members that live in Florida. So we go out to visit, and sometimes I will, like, okay, I'm not taking a felt hat, and I'll grab that no-name straw because, one, it fits in really well. Straw hats fit really well in Florida. It's almost like a uniform because it's a necessity. Like, you know, I sweat like on a drop of a dime, and so I'll reach for that hat. So I'm like, okay, at least I got a hat. It's a, you know, really, I forget how many euros I paid for that in Croatia, but I bought it from a stand, and I'm like, I rock that hat all through Croatia, and then I brought it back to me to Spain. Indeed, he's my one and only hat maker. If I can dream it, he can make it. Yeah, man. I tell you, he is amazing. We got a lot of really great artisans that are doing it up really well and are really keeping the hat like like, you know, obviously, you know, even though Kevin doesn't make his own hat, you know, he has that connection to McGill in Canada, and he's able to, like, make your creation into a reality. Right? You can get a custom hat, any color scheme you really want and desire. I got to think that, you know, if I ever go with either Huffbud or with one of Kevin's KTG hats, I really want to get. I'm a big Mets fan, so I'm probably gonna itch for like a combination that has a blue felt. So I think he has a navy blue felt that he has available. Kevin does. I'm sure Huffbud has the same thing, but probably a navy blue felt with an orange trim and a orange headband, and I'll give that, and I'll make that. That'll probably be my signature hat if it looks the way I think it's gonna look. Because I'm a big Mets fan. Those are our colors, blue and orange. And I also like the Knicks. I'm a fan of the Knicks, but I'm more of a casual. But it fits well, the orange and blue. So if I commission one, it'll be one of those. I just don't know. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't, it's kind of like my jokes. Like, I make all my bad jokes to make myself laugh first. And if somebody else happens to think it's funny, then I'm like, all right, even better. That's like icing on the cake. But the same thing with the hats. You know what I mean? Like, I buy my hats for myself. But if somebody else likes it, that makes it that much more cool to me, right? Because I think that's the benefit of doing things like this YouTube channel, and to share our hats with pictures, right? It gives the opportunity, one, to share our hobby with fellow hat nerds, and also with new people maybe create future hat nerds, right? Yeah, I think everybody like these are like our babies, and we kind of want to show off our babies, right? Like, hey, tell me how cute my baby is, right? Maybe I'm the only one that thinks that way. Sometimes I think like, oh yeah, everybody thinks that way. Like, nope, that's only you, Luke, because you a madman. I think thank goodness everybody wants to do that. Like the folks that do, and we have so many Facebook groups that we can post to, and then we got good ambassadors like Mikhail and Kevin, and various others, right? Like I talked about this on the stream. One thing I haven't done yet on my hat journey is really go out and visit the various hat shops that we have, especially the ones in New York, right? So we have the gentleman in Brooklyn, Steve. I believe his name is Steve. I think he's Steve Goldstein. I'm probably butchering this, but Steve's Hat Shop in Brooklyn. is an iconic hat shop. And I owe it to myself to at least visit and maybe share some of my hard-earned cash with gentlemen like that because they're ambassadors, right? On Facebook, I follow Meyer the Hatter. Morgan, I'm not sure if you've seen Meyer the Hatter, but he's 101 years old and he owns a hat shop in New Orleans. And I can only imagine, like, he's 101 already. Yeah, Steve Goldstein. Yep. Bencraft. That's it. Yep. Yeah, they're my go-to for local repairs and when I'm looking for good company. Yeah, I've never met Steve, but that's something that I'll have to kind of do. Steve, if you ever see this video, then definitely love to meet you. I know your reputation and I know of your posts, and you are also a great ambassador for this community. Beside and also providing great hats. I think Steve, he might still actually have, but Steve was like he's a good guy and worth visiting if you're back in your hometown. Yeah, I'm actually going back to the New York, New Jersey area in about a week. It's just like usually I can only do it for the weekend. Like, so I'm in the DC area. It's only about a 5-hour drive. Well, one, because I drive so slow. It's about a 5-hour drive. But usually when I go, there's always like an itinerary. So like I'll visit family in New Jersey first and then make my way to like New York. So sometimes it's just not enough time to go out and do like visit the hat shops. Some, like a couple times on those trips, I managed to go out and buy some hats from Kevin. But one of these days, I'm gonna make it over to Bencraft because we got to. We already kind of know what's happening with a lot of the great hat shops. What's happening is that they're going away because somebody like Meyer the Hatter can't live forever, and hobefully somebody like Meyer has a family member. Steve hopefully has a family member that's really into into the hobby and into the business, and he can leave them. You can pass down the hat shop, or he managed to sell it to somebody. Like, I don't know. I could have. It'd be great to see somebody like Kevin have his own hat shop. He's talked about it. I mean, technically he does have his own hat shop. It's just online. But he would be somebody that'd be great if he could open up his own hat shop in the New York area. Maybe somewhere in Queens, or maybe something like if he were able to take over Bencraft. Not Steve. I know you're probably alive and kicking and have no plans to ever sell your place, but hopefully if that ever does happen and you retire, then you could pass on that hat shop, that great hat shop, and keep that tradition. And that goes the same for all these hat shops across the U.S. that still exist. I was in Newark, New Jersey, and I had a family member who was, an older family member. He's in his 80s, and he was telling me about like this great hat shop that existed in Newark, New Jersey. And sure enough, I went to go try to visit the hat shop, but lo and behold, it doesn't exist anymore. It's a different type. It's a clothing store. It's in the downtown area, like near what's the name of the place? The Prudential Center. It's near the Prudential Center, and you could tell that was a great place to own a hat shop, but it must have gone away. It was not. The owner must have retired, or business wasn't good enough, and they had to close up. I think you could still see in the sign, it might say like Borsalino and Stetson and all the other fine hat brands that we know. But I didn't go in because it didn't seem like a hat shop. It kind of seemed just like a clothing store. But maybe the next time I'm in Newark, I'll go in there and visit and see if they do still have, the hats. I was just a little disappointed because it was a proper haberdashery that was very famous, or at least famous enough amongst the folks in New Jersey, and my family member included. And just doesn't exist. And I don't want to see that. If I ever kind of do a tour, I'll check out all the New York, New Jersey hat shops that still exist, and I will go out to like Meyer the Hatter in New Orleans. I'll also try to make it out to Batsaki's. I think Batsaki's is in Cincinnati. And I have friends that are from the Cincinnati area. And some of them know of Batsakis because it's just been around for forever. I think well over 100 years. But I'm like, even though I'm ever the optimist, I got to imagine that a place like that can't exist forever. Nothing lasts forever, right? Like the November Rain song by Guns N' Roses. So, we got to kind of, if we can help by, sharing some of our hard-earned money with these folks, but at least sharing some of our time and let them know that they are kind of appreciated and they serve a useful purpose, even though the fine hat community is not what it used to be. It's still a thing, and luckily Ben Craft is still around, and any of the other hatters that are still around. It's just we need to do that. I don't want to see that go away. But yeah, interesting. I really am interested in learning more about like the folks that are getting into this hobby and that are finding this channel, and that because I'm not considered like Morgan. You're probably in the same boat. I think we're relatively newcomers to this, and we're still kind of get our bearings. I think if I had to give advice to like a newcomer that's watching this video, or like, hey, what's this hat stuff about? Like, I like it. I know I've seen movies. I had an uncle. That's my favorite story, right? So I talked about my favorite thing that happens when I go out and buy a hat, let's say privately. And one of my favorite stories is a hat that I bought. It was in New Jersey, and the person that was selling it happened to be the niece of the owner that had passed away. When I came in there, and obviously we're a stranger, like we didn't know each other, and I think I endeared myself to this person selling the hat because I reminded them of their uncle that was no longer here, and I think that was really touching. And I get that a lot more, like when somebody sees me and wants to engage me in conversation, they'll always say, you know who you remind me of? You remind me of my uncle or my dad. One family member saw my photos on Facebook and said, I remind them of my grandfather. That's kind of how I learned about my grandfather being a big, huge hat guy. I've never met my grandfather. This is my dad's dad. My family's originally from Puerto Rico. And my granddad apparently was a very tall man, and also never left anywhere without his hat on. And it was my first my first YouTube post. So like if you go into like the post section of my channel, you can see a photo of my granddad that was just a digital, like I literally cut that from a picture that was snapped by a cousin of mine. And she is the sister of the cousin that actually has this hanging in his living room, and took a photo. She sent it to me, and now I have it on my phone, and I posted on the Fedora Lounge, and I always have that because there's a tie there. Like even though I've never met my granddad, my dad's side, I will not, like that photo is very precious to me. And my dad never really was into fine hats. I got my dad his very first bowler hat, and it's a modern hat. It wasn't anything like, but it was a Kappas. That was the brand. I was trying to remember what kind of brand it was, but Kappas exists in Queens. Kevin sells some of Kappa's hats. I forget where I found this Kappa's hat. It wasn't brand new. It was actually pretty beat up. And I found this Kappa's bowler that was ginormous. It was like 61 centimeters or 63 or 61 centimeters in circumference. I was way too big for my noggin. But I was like, my dad, this might fit dad. So I immediately texted my mom and I said, hey, could you do me a favor without saying anything to dad's my dad's kind of like wheelchair bound. He's like 86 years old, I think now. So I told my mom, hey, could you do me a favor? Take a tape measure and measure dad's head circumference. Um, and she did, and like, this hat's gonna work. I was like, all right, next time I'm there, I'm gonna bring Dad this hat, and he wears it all the time. And I think I will share probably on my next Facebook, not my Facebook, because I already posted this on Facebook. I created a whole dedicated thread to it. But I will post my second probably YouTube post. I already got my granddad in there, but his son, my dad, will be my second YouTube post. I'll post a photo of him in his bowler, and also I have one of him in his bowler and his Cuban style guayabera. Again, that's in terms of like style. I don't know. This is something I inherited from my dad. My dad would always, when I was growing up, he would always wear these Cuban style guayaberas, and they're very popular in Puerto Rico where my dad was born. And essentially, they're kind of casual, but in a way can also be formal dress in Puerto Rico and Cuba and a lot of the islands. They even wear them in the Philippines. I think in the Dominican Republic, they're called chacabanas. They're not called guayaberas. They're called guayaberas in Puerto Rico and Cuba. And the Philippines, they have a dedicated name for it as well, but I can't. Oh yeah, Morgan, thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by. And yeah, feel free to step in anytime or in the future. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. You already made the stream a success. Thank you. And I'll see you around Facebook and maybe in a future stream. You have a great day. Enjoy your Sunday. And I'll keep looking out for the posts. All right. Well, we had Morgan Brown join us. Morgan is someone I know from the Facebook groups, and she stopped by to share some of her hat story with us. And Morgan, thank you. I appreciate it. You have a great collection of hats. I love seeing your posts, and I look forward to seeing you in like a future in a future stream. And obviously a future post. I think for me, like getting back to like the topic at hand, in terms of like my style and we talked about Rocky and how Rocky had some sort of direct or indirect influence on like this pie chain and like my hat style. And so we talked about that. We talked about the hat of the day. My hat of the day is this gray Dobbs Homburg 15 from 1957. So, and the reason I know this is because this is like one of, if not the only hat where I actually have the original purchase receipt. So this hat you can see here from Jim Patterson Hats in Sacramento. I'm assuming Jim Patterson does not exist anymore, but this hat was originally purchased. Whoever owned this hat got this receipt from Jim Patterson on either September 2nd or September 7th, 1957. And true to form, you can see they paid $15 plus 60 cents tax. What a steal, right? I'm sure in 1957, that was like an arm and a leg. But sure enough, they paid it because they wanted this hat. And now I own it. And I don't know who owned it in between. Whoever owned it and I purchased it from, I couldn't even tell you where I got it from, but they had the presence of mind to give me and send me this receipt. I don't think I knew that I was getting this receipt when I purchased this hat. I might have found this online, and I just happened to get this receipt. And you don't understand, I was floored when I got the hat, because besides being in like impeccable shape, like now this hat is about 68 years old. And it just was in impeccable shape, and it probably won't stay that way because I wear this hat pretty often, and I sweat like I'm not going to say the phrase, but you could probably imagine what the phrase will be. I'll keep this clean, at least for now. But I sweat a lot, and a lot of my hats, that sweatband has suffered for that. Again, that's just the type of collector I am. I try to wear these everywhere I go, regardless of season. I know we have people that are also into straw hats, and what they'll do is they'll depending on the season, they'll break out the straws when it starts getting warm because they don't want to damage their hats. I just love felt hats way too much, and I'm like, I don't know how long I'll be on this earth. I'm closer to 50 than I am 40, and yeah, I think for now I'm like I'm just gonna wear this. It's for me, it's like a besides being kind of a tool to keep my head protected from the elements. It's also kind of like this is my style, I guess. And so as much as I can, I'll rock my uniform of choice, which is a fine hat, this pie chain, unless it gets like so dirty where I'm like, I got to take this off because it's just filthy. It's stainless steel, and stainless steel still is not stainless; it still gets stained. And I'll try to rock some kind of guayabera or decent jacket that I'm able to wear, and of course, I'll rock a watch. I have a very very small but dear watch collection that I'm really passionate about. I just love the watches, and a lot of them actually didn't belong to me. They were gifted to me by somebody very near and dear to the family. And so now that the watches just hold a different meaning to me, just like some of the hats. We call that I guess the hat nerds refer to it as the provenance. The provenance of the hat, these fine hats is, I guess, the real story about how one came about the hat. And unfortunately or fortunately, my memory or the fact that it happened long enough ago where I'm not able to remember every single story that came with the hat, but that's okay. I am creating stories with the hat by wearing them, by wearing them on the stream. One of the goals of this stream is for myself and whoever happens to join my stream, either as somebody that watches exclusively and maybe post a comment and interacts with me in real time, or who happens to watch this stream after it goes live and it's already been published, or comes joins me as a guest. Hopefully I'll get Kevin on here one day and maybe Meyer the Hatter. I don't know if that's going to ever happen, but that'd be great if I could have Meyer the Hatter and maybe Mikhail from Huffbud join me, and all the other great ambassadors that we have in the community, regardless of whether they're a hat maker or a hat seller or whatnot. Just any other member of the hat community that just happens to want to interact with me. Maybe they want to fire up the webcam and then join me as a guest. I'm happy to do it because what I'm trying to do is build a legacy here of hat content that will hopefully live maybe even beyond me. I guess it'll live as long as YouTube exists. And, YouTube is owned by Google, and hopefully, big tech doesn't go by the way of the hat industry and will always be a thing. So as long as YouTube will allow me to keep hosting this hat content, and as long as I have the energy to keep creating new content for folks to find, I'll keep this going. I've already had Morgan. You are the third person from the hat community that I've interacted with on these streams, and I am tickled that I've already been able to have you guys join me and share some of your input, because that's what it's all about. I think now that we kind of are, we know that the heyday of fine hats has waned. We now have a nice, strong, and healthy subculture, a fine hat subculture that exists on social media, via the Fedora Lounge, via YouTube, via Facebook, and what have you. And now is a time where we have to leverage technology to the best of our ability to stay in touch with each other. So besides that, I just happen to be from New York City, as is Morgan. Originally, I'm in the DC area now, and but I've interacted with so many folks across the U.S. and across the globe, just because we have access to communication that we didn't have access to via video. So now, whereas something would have happened through through just typing on the internet. The bright side of the pandemic, if one could say that there's a bright side, was that it gave rise to communicating in real time in a distributed fashion via video. So we have audio and video, so you can see this jerk in front of you bloviating about whatever he decides to bloviate about it at any given time. But if you choose that that's kind of your thing that you want to see, you have access to it like never before. And on top of that, it's not just a talking head, although I am a talking head very much so. You can actually ask this talking head questions in real time. And yeah, one of the best implementations I've seen of that was at the DC Air and Space Museum. Now, when I say DC, I didn't mean the one. There is one in actually Washington, DC proper, but there's actually a bigger Air and Space Museum in Dulles, Virginia. So if you're right near the airport, you have the Air and Space Museum, and they actually have a spacecraft there. So besides having the Concorde, so if you're kind of like, I'm kind of like a minor airplane nerd, not really, because I know that there's true airplane nerds, but regardless of how much of an airplane nerd you are, you owe it to yourself to visit both air and space museums out in the DC area. So maybe start off in DC proper and go to that one, but find your way out west into Northern Virginia, into Dulles, and go to the DC and Air Space Museum and go see that Concorde and go see that spacecraft that they have there. I couldn't tell you more about it. I forget the name of the craft, but they actually have an actual astronaut, like an astronaut, and he's a much older gentleman, and he is in his home, and they have set up a laptop for you to, in real time, ask him any questions you want about space travel and about the shuttle and about anything you could think of about HAT. And I'm like, wow, that right there, just that in and of itself was worth the price of admission many times over. I don't know how long that, like, I just happened to be going on when I was there, but if that is in perpetuity, now again, I imagine that it will last as long as this gentleman's willing to continue doing that. But yeah, it's super to be able to like have access, I thought, to some sort of person that may know something that you don't know, or may able to verify a rumor or something like that. We talked about like the idea behind the Kennedy administration and the rumor that John F. Kennedy was kind of goaded into, he wasn't a hat guy. Everybody kind of knows that he was like the first president that we had in the U.S. that was not somebody that would wear a top hat or a Homburg. That was tradition for presidents prior. And but big hat, I'm going to call it big hat, that existed. So the Hat Corporation of America, that was, I believe, run by John Kavanaugh. The story goes that John Kavanaugh was good friends with John F. Kennedy, and as a personal favor, maybe I'm butchering the story, but as a personal favor, Kennedy allegedly agreed to be seen with a hat, if not on his purse, like on his head, but have it in his hand and have it displayed in such a way that you could see the label. So you could see a kind of label underneath, and you know that he had a fine hat from the Hat Corporation of America, be it Dobbs, Berg, Knox, Kavanaugh, right? I butchered like the edge. It was the Kavanaugh edge. I don't know why I couldn't remember it on that past live stream, but the famous edge that Kavanaugh made famous is the Kavanaugh edge. And I don't have a Kavanaugh on now. This is a Dobbs, but so also Hat Corporation of America. But yeah, it was a Kavanaugh edge. So yeah, just to kind of right that wrong, For those folks that were like, "You moron, it was a Kavanaugh edge. How do you not know that?" It's like I said, the things that I don't know could fill many volumes of an encyclopedia. I don't pretend to be an expert in basically anything. Um, I'm just a guy. Just a guy that loves fine hats and maybe knows a couple things. He knows enough to be. Now I'm talking in the third person. I know enough to be dangerous. Yeah, I think it's kind of fun. I think that is. I think that's also kind of one of the allures of starting this channel is that, for somebody to say it's okay that I don't know, right? We talked about how this field and this hat community is very dominated by guys, right? It's very much a male dominated hobby, but I like to see that the fact that it keeps growing, the fact that it's a subculture now, and that we're embracing new members. Like, we're going to have we have a lot more female members and a lot more younger folks than is tradition, right? It's like the stereotypical, old guy, showing off his hat collection. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're an old guy, I consider myself an old guy now as well. But yeah, we need more fresh blood in this community. And as I don't know, again, I'm going to just call myself an ambassador of the community, but we need somebody to come up on camera and say, "Hey, I don't know the answer to that," because it's not really common for guys to say that. It's probably like that social pressure that guys have to, if they don't know the answer to something, they'll say they do, right? Everybody knows that thing about, like, you work on a car, right? If you're working on cars, like, you will get inevitably some guy that rolls around from the neighborhood that knows everything about cars. They might actually not know anything about cars, but they're going to pass themselves off as somebody that knows about cars. And only because I think they feel that social pressure to say, like, "Hey, you're working on a car. Yeah, I work on cars every day. I'm a total grease monkey." But they're not, and I'm like, why do you have to, like, say that you are? It's okay not to be an expert. But I think guys feel that kind of pressure. And maybe you tell me if you don't think this is a thing. I could be completely making this up. But I think there exists that pressure, that social pressure for guys, when it comes to things like anything mechanical, or anything like that's traditionally a guy's domain, a man's domain, right? Cars would probably be an example. I think hats might fit that bill, but let's say maybe watches would be another one. But cars seem to be like that prototypical example of, where guys will come up and they start posturing, especially around other guys, and you start getting, it's like, "Oh yeah, well, you don't know how to change, you don't know how to, like, switch out your engine." Like, I can't count the number of times I switched out an engine in my car. It's easy. Even a caveman can do it. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, it's one of those funny, but also in a way very sad realities of being a guy. And it's funny. I like to think it's funny, but it's also like a little sad that guys have to feel, especially in 2025, that they got to keep doing that. And I just don't want to be another one of those guys that does that. Like, I am okay saying I don't know. I'm okay saying I can't do that. I'm okay saying that's cool. It's just I'm not interested in that. Because that's probably the reality of it, right? Like, maybe, like, I do little minor things on my car. I have a pretty reliable Toyota Corolla that's old as all get out, at least comparatively. It's 2007. But I could change my cabin air filter and my engine oil filter, and I don't know what else I can do. I won't change my own oil. Like, regardless, I'll take my car to Walmart and get my oil changed there. only because I find that they do an excellent job at a great price. And I'm definitely not switching out my car's transmission or my engine. First of all, my car's transmission and engine just happen to be running just fine. I never had that problem, but I'd rather probably poke my eye out than do that. And I'm certainly not going to brag that I can do it, because there's no way I can. Like, if I took a car apart and put it back together, you'd be surprised at all the extra pieces that happen to find their way. I'm like, oh, where'd all these extra pieces come from? They surely must be just not useful. I think the same thing would happen with with hats, right? So I mentioned this on a previous live stream, is that on the Fedora Lounge, my favorite thread is, what hat are you wearing today, right? So that's kind of like where I post this content. But another thread that exists is, what hat are you working on today? Where you see some amazing work done by my fellow Fedora loungers, where they are not just wearing hats, they are restoring hats, which I think is fascinating. That's one of those things where I'm like, I love seeing it. I don't think I could do it. And maybe I could do it. I just don't right now have an interest in doing it. But it doesn't mean I don't really appreciate and admire the craft. So it's like, you got folks that are hatters that make the hats, right? But you have folks that really, like, their thing that really draws them is finding a hat that looks like it's a goner. I mentioned this before. I'm like, I see some of these before pictures and I'm like, wait a minute, you're gonna turn into, and then you're like, whoa, like, how did you do that? It was like literally like a magic trick where they take this hat that like had no sweatband, or had like a sweatband that was torn to pieces, and it looked like it had grease stains all over it, and all that, and they turned it into like what looks like a show quality hat. And I'm just amazed by the fact that people have the time, the inclination, and the just the desire to do that. And who knows? Maybe they once they're done with it, maybe the hat no longer is like useful for them because it's like pristine now. They'll probably go on and find the next hat that is a goner, and maybe they'll come about it like maybe that the allure is that somebody will gift them a hat, or they pay a dime. Like they'll pay like a song, right? Let's phrase. I got this hat for a song. And they'll take it and turn it into something really beautiful. And who knows, maybe they will gift that hat, and what do you call it? Pay it forward, right? That's something I'd like to do. I think that might be something that I do, because I think there's, again, if you haven't seen this thing, you will know that my hat collection exists as like more than one, less than 100, and for those folks that are really super interested and super curious, it's well under 100. It's probably well under 50 by my count. But let's just say I have more hats than I think. I fashion myself a minimalist, and I try not to acquire hats, but sometimes they just happen to, like, something. I'll see a hat and I'm like, I gotta have that hat. And I think we all feel that. We get that dopamine hit when we see that hat, that like, oh boy, I'm buying that. Like, that's coming home with me. And yeah, I get it. And then like the moment has passed, like that dopamine shot, kind of like a drug, that dopamine, that follow-up dopamine hit that you get just wanes, and you get used to it. And you become acclimated, or you build a tolerance for that dopamine. And all of a sudden, the hat doesn't do anything for you anymore. And I'm like, I don't know. And then at that point, you post a photo, and maybe somebody says, "Hey, I'll buy that hat. How much you want for it?" And I'm like, "Oh, make me an offer." I'm like, yeah, like maybe I'll still like the hat, but it's kind of like, it's just like I'd rather have it see it have a better home, and I think that's just how the collector lifestyle is, right? Or maybe not for some people, right? I think with some of the ridiculous hat collections that we've seen, these fine hat collections that we see on Facebook. We've seen them on Fedora Lounge, where it's like, show me your hat wall. And you've seen walls and walls and walls and walls and walls and walls of hats. And I'm like, wow. And the first thing I kind of think of is like, that person never sells a hat, you know? And like, more power to you. I'm like, if you are somebody that will like acquire a hat and you have no earthly intention to ever get rid of that hat, I think that's a great thing. I'm like, God bless you. You know, I'm like, there's room for all of us to have that kind of inclination. You know, as long as your better half, if your better half is somebody that exists, as long as your better half is okay with that and lets you do that and have all the space to do that, or maybe you just by yourself and you have that you have the ability to make that call. If you can think of nothing better than having every crevice filled with hats, I'm like, I see the allure. I mean, as somebody that has had a hat wall, like I don't have the hat wall anymore, but I will probably resurrect it. I'm like at the point now where I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable. Well, one, I'm comfortable where like not acquiring any more hats. And I'm also comfortable like with getting rid of some hats, you know. I had I want to say it was my second live stream. I don't know what number it is. Like this is number 7 if you like are curious. This is hat chat number 7, but in a previous hat chat, I was prepping a modern brown bowler that I had for sale only because it was a perfect example of I know why I bought the hat. I got the hat because I was like, oh boy, a brown bowler. If you've been collecting vintage hats, you kind of know that brown bowlers are a little bit more rare. And that was not a rare piece by any means. It was a brown bowler by Hats in the Belfry. And I bought it because I was like, I want to have a brown bowler, and darn it, this is a brown bowler and it's coming home with me. So it did. But as happens probably to me and whoever else like is known for selling some hats, that initial dopamine hit that I got from that brown bowler, I got a tolerance to it. And somebody made me an offer for the hat, and it actually wasn't like I met the gentleman at the mall, at the local mall. And as far as I can tell, the gentleman was not a hat nerd. He was just somebody that always wanted a bowler hat. He loves the look. Maybe he was a fan of gangster movies like I am and saw that. It's like, wow, that's like one of those hats where you wear and you're like, yeah, Shane, yeah, yeah. You know, I think it had that allure for him. And I can understand that allure. But they were like, I will buy that hat. How much you want for it. And we negotiated and he came up to a fair price. And I usually don't like traveling to sell a hat. I just, you know, I'd rather you come to me or find someplace close by. But this was kind of like a 20-minute drive for me. So I made the 20-minute drive. I haven't been to that mall in forever. So I was like, okay, it'll be at least a good excuse to get out to that mall and see what's happening at the mall these days. So I got the transaction done. The gentleman was tickled to see the hat because it was in great shape. Like I just hadn't worn the hat that often. It was already pristine when I got it. And all I did was, and you saw it during the live stream, was I took a hat brush to it, you know, which is what I do to all my hats when I get a chance. The only maintenance I do for my hats right now is I will take a horsehair brush and I will take that brush and go counterclockwise on the top of the felt, right? Which I think is supposed to be the way you do it. If my research and my gathering of knowledge is correct, you call it countertop, right? The shorthand for those folks that are new to the hat scene, for fine hats, you employ what we call countertop when it comes to brushing. So on the top of the felt, you grab it and then you brush counterclockwise. So I think I'm doing this right. This might look weird to somebody that's viewing this, depending on how it comes across on the camera. But you just imagine counterclockwise, and you have a lot of the hat brushes are curved in such a way so that you're able to go counterclockwise on your hat, onto the top of the hat, right where the top of the hat meets the the brim per se, and you can go around the entire felt of the hat in a counterclockwise fashion. And then on the bottom of the hat, so right over here where I'm touching, you go clockwise. So clockwise. So countertop, clockwise. You brush with that, and for me, that's all I ever do to the hat. And I only do that when I can start seeing visible dust, and I start getting my OCD starts kicking in. But I never steam my hats. Not that there's anything wrong with steaming your hats. Lord knows that I have plenty of hats that were steamed, but they weren't steamed by me. Because one, I've never steamed a hat. Two, I've seen it done. I technically know how to do it. But I have no inclination to do it. Because I just happen to have enough hats that are bashed in such a way that they were steamed and bashed, that I'm like, you know what? That's perfect. It's why I bought the hat, probably, because I saw it bashed in such a way that I'm like, I want that hat, and I'm not going to alter the hat. Again, no offense to those that love steaming and bashing their hats and doing that repeatedly. I just feel like it's just something I don't want to spend my time on. And I happen to own a few hats, like my Borsalino that I wore on a previous segment, where the Borsalino was one of these Borsalinos that just, and maybe they're all like that. I only own one Borsalino hat, so I couldn't tell you. It's a Borsalino velour, and it's very pliable, meaning that when I dry bash it, I can add whatever bash I want, and it tends to hold that bash, that style that I want. And I feel like I get my kicks with hats, like my bash kicks. Like if I want to try a different bash that really catches my suits, I'm like, hey, I want to have a different bash. I will just grab that hat or any hat that has a pliable felt and dry bash it to my heart's content. I just don't. Again, no offense to anybody that likes to steam and bash, but I'm a dry basher. I'm a no basher or dry basher. No bash means that I'll just, whatever bash the hat had when I acquired it, it'll probably keep that bash. That Homburg that I sold to that gentleman, that was a Dobbs Golden Coach Homburg that I no longer have. I sold it. It now has a new home in Utah. And that hat was something that when I acquired it, it had no bash. It was unbashed, so it kind of looked like a Homburg bowler per se. And luckily, that was one of those hats that took really well to just dry bashing. So I gave it a very quick center bash, the whole center bash with the Homburg, and then I gave it the two front dents, kind of like this has, except this is more like I guess this is more like in a way, a teardrop, or some sort of triangle, or looks like a teardrop to me. Anyway, I gave it the center bash, and I gave it the two front dents, and I was done. Like, it held that pose, and when I sent it off for to its new home in Utah, to the gentleman, he might have chosen to, when I think he might have saw some photos of when it was unbashed. But I just sent it the way I kept it, and it was a hat that if he really wanted to just get rid of the bash and have it original, all he would have to do is just, maybe just take his fist and turn it right back to its unbashed form. For me, I think I'm one of those guys where, if I'm gonna have a hat, usually the center bash is where I go. That's where I start. Right. So assuming I want to have any bash at all, the old classic center bash, I want to call it the karate chop, center bash. And I'm not a perfectionist by any means. I'm not thrown off too much by having an uneven bash. I know some people are. I think we are, as collectors, we have varying levels of OCD when it comes to how our hats should be. And I'm I'm just not bothered by having an imperfect bash. Actually, I kind of like it. It just makes the hat unique to me. Um, anyhow, we talked about a lot of things in the stream. One thing we talked about was, we had two people watching. Feel free to comment. I'm kind of just talking and kind of just bloviating here about stuff that just pops into my mind. So feel free to ask me any questions and welcome, first of all. We had Morgan Brown on here. Morgan, I'm not sure if you're no longer watching that. Thank you so much for participating in this stream. But yeah, I just want this to be a regular thing. So far, I've done it every day for the past week. So this is Hat Chat number 7. If you're just joining us on this series. And just like the description, like I started off, like the main pull for this channel was just a middle-aged guy bloviating about hats. I'm also a Mets fan. I kind of took that off the description because I might choose to do my Mets content on a different, like I took those videos private only because I'll probably throw that. I kind of feel like I want to have this hat. I want Good Looks to be a dedicated fine hat channel, right? So no baseball caps, no trucker hats, fine hats, and I'm going to include flat caps in there. I think I have one modern flat cap, which is my Boston Scally cap that I have. I don't wear it that often. It's kind of like very similar, kind of serves a similar purpose to my my Knox Tom and Jerry, which I wore on like the first couple of live streams. That's kind of my knockaround hat. That's kind of like I don't want to think about it. I'm going to throw this hat on and maybe go check the mailbox and maybe go for a walk. Like if I don't want to think about anything, I'll throw it on that. I'll either throw on that Boston Scally cap. Like if I'm wearing shorts, I think that's the decision, right? If I'm wearing shorts, I'm probably gonna just throw on, or my sweatpants. I will throw on the flat cap, the blue Boston Scally cap that I own. But if I have my guayabera on, my Cuban style guayabera, and I have like some proper long slacks on, I will opt for my Knox Tom and Jerry if I just don't want to think about it. It's within reach. So like when I had it hanging on the hat wall, it was just some place where I knew I'll go right to it. I know where it's hanging. I will go right there, grab the Knox Tom and Jerry, and I will throw it on because it already is like conformed to my head. And it was like that low profile hat. Like I really love that hat, man. Like that is a well loved. If you've seen that stream, you will see like how well loved. By loved, I mean worn, because it already came to me that way. And when I saw that hat, I got it from Kevin Gerber. I was like, that is, I think it had like a cigarette. Like if you look closely at the thumbnail, you might even see it. I think it has like some kind of cigarette burn hole in it, which I thought was kind of cool. I'm like, I wonder how that happened. Like somebody just like, oh, I'm just gonna put the cigarette out in this hat. It could have been a complete accident. But I don't know. That's kind of also like the allure. Like if you don't know the proper story of the hat, when you look at the condition of the hat, you start imagining. I do at least. You start imagining what the heck happened to this hat. How did it get this way? And like I said, when I do a private sale, meaning when I acquire a hat privately, and I am now meeting the owner or what will be the past owner of the hat after we complete the transaction, I'll try to ask them, like if they seem friendly enough and willing to engage, I would try to ask, like, do you know the story of the hat? Like what can you tell me about, like, how did you come about this hat? So like again, the provenance of the hat. How did you come about the hat? So that I have, like, when I start like looking at the hat and start like fleshing out that story in my head, in the ever great imagination that I have, or not so great imagination, I'll maybe have something that will fit into the story, right? So if I know that the hat belonged to a family member, maybe they'll tell me like, oh, this hat belonged to Uncle so and so. At least now I say, oh, that was Uncle so and so. Probably maybe Uncle so and so was a smoker, and somehow managed to burn the Tom and Jerry, his Tom and Jerry with the butt of his with this cigarette. I'm like, I don't know how else that happens. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have heard of people kind of taking a flame to a hat, but that just looks like a single solitary cigarette burn or hole. It looks like a burn hole to me. And I'm like, how did that happen? I'm like, you probably have the same kind of, or at least some of you guys that watch this probably have a similar story about how you came about. What do you do when you get a new hat? Or maybe you're one of those folks that have gotten a hat from me, and I can tell you what I did with it, and I am telling you what I did with it. Like, if you bought a hat from me, chances are it was worn by me, probably excessively. Well, maybe not excessively. I have a lot of hats I can cycle through, so it might not be excessive. But yeah, I probably took the hat and I wore it out on my daily business, which is like checking the mailbox, going to the supermarket, going out to another hat sale, right? So every time I go out for a hat sale, I'll wear a fine hat because I don't know. Part of my weird mentality and thinking is that somebody might want to know that it's going to the new home for that hat will be another hat person that's going to wear it. It's going to treat it like decently. I don't know, whatever. Again, these are things that I make up in my head that are probably so far off from reality that that I'm just like, oh, I'm just doing it because I like to think that's how I'd like to think that that's how things work, and that everybody thinks that way, right? Like, we all kind of want to think that we're not so weird. Although I am at this stage in my life, I am okay not being cookie cutter. I mean, I wouldn't wear. I think anybody that goes outside with a fine hat these days is probably at least somewhat okay not being cookie cutter and not being so normal, because it's not normal anymore. Like, you don't see folks wearing fine hats like we used to. So something about us is like, we're okay with that. I'm fine. I'm okay going out with my pie chain, and having somebody be like, why are you wearing pie on your chain? Like, what's that about? Are you Jewish? Are you, I don't know what's going on. And I'm okay engaging with them. It's a good hat, it's a good icebreaker, I guess. I got just asked the other day, by somebody in my neighborhood whether I was Hebrew, and I'm like, no, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not Jewish. But yeah, it's just pie. It's a metaphor for the infinite, and it's just something. When I saw it, like, kind of like my hat, when I saw this chain for sale, I'm like, that's mine, and that will, I mean, it'll be forever mine unless I decide it's not going to be mine anymore. Yeah, it's just become part of my uniform. Kind of like my guayaberas and the fine hats and my watch. I think we all have. I think we don't get to this like stage in life and not have routines, right? I think but as human beings, we are creatures of habit. They keep us safe, they keep us regulated, and they keep us moving up towards our goals. And part of that, it becomes like we develop a certain style, whatever that style might be. For some people, like I've seen on Fedora Lounge, they wear a three-piece suit everywhere they go, and they're not like going to a job. They just choose not to go outside and be seen in public unless they have a three-piece suit on. And I gotta respect that, because we all have our uniform. Like, we all have our thing. Like, I'm going out this way to be seen, because people will be outside, and we will, like the kids say, when we decide that we're going to touch grass and go outside our humble abode, we want to be seen a certain way. Like, we're a certain way that we are comfortable being seen, and however you choose to do that, that is cool by me. Yeah, it's just no different than wearing a trucker cap or wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt, a tie-dye sheet t-shirt, or I don't know. Maybe I'm out of touch with what the kids are wearing these days, but yeah. Whatever you choose to wear, it's okay, as long as you go out there and put out you're a good ambassador for wherever you're an ambassador of, whether it be fine hats, guayaberas, or just a person. So yeah, I think I don't know if this is like too touchy feely content. Not trying to just preach, but again, I want somebody like, I don't know who's watching this video. You guys are probably seasoned hat. I see somebody's watching the video, but I don't know who. You may be a seasoned hat person, and I'm talking about stuff that's like you're not interested in. But that's okay. This is kind of like I operate with one audience in mind, and that's myself. And then I'm just hoping that somebody finds the content useful. Actually, to be honest, if I do cater to anybody, I think if I had to choose an audience besides my fellow hat nerds, it would probably be folks that are not like folks on the fringe. Somebody that's curious about like fine hats, somehow made some way they got it in their head that they want to explore what this hobby is all about. And maybe they want advice from somebody that's already in the community, and I'd like to give them good advice. Here's one thing. And I won't be on this stream that much longer. We'll see. The caffeination's waning at some point. But it's like a question like, what do I do? What would be a piece of advice for somebody that is thinking about wanting to get into fine hats? What would you recommend, right? Right off the top of my head, because that's how I roll, I freestyle all of this stuff. Right off the top of my head, I got to think the first thing you want to do is one, join social media communities like the Fedora Lounge, and also Facebook. If you happen to be on Facebook, there's tons of hat groups. Kevin's Hats and Guitars is one of them. I happen to be an admin on a Facebook group called the Hatters Lounge. It's a very small group. I think we only have 75 members right now. But somebody saw me and thought to make me an admin for that, and that's what I am. I'm an admin for that hat group. And I haven't at least I know that's one Facebook group they can't kick me out of, at least until they decide to not make me an admin anymore. But yeah, join one of those Facebook groups and one of those Fedora Lounge groups, Fedora Lounge forums, something like that, and just learn. Look at the photos, because the one thing that we are very good at with this community, regardless of what kind of collector you are or hat person, is that we have a good contingent of folks that like to show off their babies, right? Like, we are infatuated with our own babies, our own hats, and we want to share them with each other. And we'll compliment each other as like good hat people and be like, oh, what a beautiful baby. What's your baby's name? Well, how old is your baby? But learn and see what kind of style you're into. Morgan was here earlier, and Morgan was like, she saw my Homburg and said, hey, I like the way the Homburg looks. Everybody's been in that situation. I think unless they, like I said, they grew up with a dad or a granddad or an uncle or some sort of family member or friend that wore a Homburg. You probably saw it maybe on the head of like a president or like Winston Churchill or somebody else who famously wore a Homburg, or you saw it in a gangster movie. You saw it on Michael Corleone in The Godfather, and you said, I gotta have one of those. Well, what's the first thing you do? Is like, well, one, you interact with the person that owns the Homburg and you start picking their brain. Maybe you go on here and you pick my brain about what I know about the Homburg, or, which is not a whole lot, like maybe not enough to really speak intelligently about it, but now you know what it's called, right? You'll be surprised about many hat people that don't even know that it's called a Homburg, and that's probably where I would start. I think that there's like five, off the top of my head, I think there are 5 types of fine hats that one could really like get into that are mainstays. And there are probably more. You can probably tell me more. I think maybe 6 if you count straw hats and that kind of thing. But I'm not a straw hat person. You won't see too many straw hats here. I only own one, and it's not probably worth sharing, but I will share it. But yeah, I think right, there's the designation of fedora, and there's that designation. I think that is fedora is a kind of has become a catch-all term for fine hats. It's kind of a synonymous, even though there is a designation, there is a classification, a more formal operational definition of what is a fedora versus, let's say, what is a trilby versus what is a Homburg hat. So one, start learning about those designations and what those are, and which one of those designations fits the type of hat that you like to collect. So we talked about fedoras, we talked about trilbies, we talked about Homburgs, but there are also bowler hats, also known as derby hats in the U.S. So you have bowlers and derbies. You also have pork pie hats. Pork pie hats I own, I think, 2 pork pies, and they're definitely there's a lots of love for the pork pie hats among the fine hat community. I think the pork pie hat gets the reputation of being a more casual hat. It was famously worn by Gene Hackman, who, God rest his soul, is no longer with us at the moment, but everybody remembers Popeye Doyle, the character. And he famously wore, I believe it was a Dobbs pork pie, which I also own a Dobbs pork pie. The great movie, the French Connection. That's the movie. So if you are a cinema nerd like myself, you will watch The French Connection with Gene Hackman, and you will get introduced to Popeye Doyle and the pork pie hat, who made it famous. Secondly, made famous the pork pie was, let's be honest, is Breaking Bad. Heisenberg famously is the character of Walter White in Breaking Bad, and he kind of brought back the pork pie hat for a lot of folks that are new to the fine hat community. I forget how he decided that he was going to come about the pork pie in the show, but great show, Breaking Bad. I recommend it, if only to see Heisenberg wear the pork pie hat. So we talked about Michael Corleone and the Homburg, and then finally I will talk about the top hat. Obviously, the top hat was probably the formal hat of choice before the Homburg. I think if my history is correct, you would start off as the top hat was the formal hat of choice by fine gentlemen of yesteryear, and that kind of segued and led into like more of the Homburg becoming the fine hat of choice for politicians and the like, and distinguished gentlemen alike, and gentlefolk in modern day. But one thing, this might not be the exemplar, but Gangs of New York is a movie that's a relatively more modern movie that had some great hats in it, some great top hats. And I think, and I could be butchering this, I don't own a top hat, but I know a little bit about top hats. They had the steam pipe top hat, which I don't know historically when it came in and out of favor. And that was contrasted with the more of the Wellington style top hat. That might be all I really know about top hats, to be honest. And then they have the higher top hats versus the low profile top hats, that probably, if you were somebody that grew up in the 80s, you might know Guns N' Roses, you might know Slash, who famously wore a leather top hat. And that was his signature look. Had the big hair and the leather top hat. And Kevin, if Kevin watches this the stream, he might like. I could imagine Kevin used to have the big locks of hair, and I think that he could have definitely pulled off the Slash look with the leather top hat and with the guitar, right? Every time I looked at Kevin with his mint green Borsalino that he famously wore as his signature hat, and I think he still wears it. He is somebody that definitely could pull off that signature Slash look. Anyway, I think that's all in terms of like what my recommendations for new hat nerds or budding hat nerds is. go out there, be part of the community, be willing to learn and to share your journey with a lot of more of the seasoned vets. And I still consider myself a newbie into this community. Um, and just share what you've had and what your questions are. Obviously you'll have some of our more seasoned folks that don't want to be bothered with newbies, but we do have, the nice thing is that we have many more people than curmudgeon. We have many more nice folks than curmudgeons in this hobby that are more than willing to share what they know and just commiserate and tell you and give you advice, even sometimes unsolicited, whether you want to or not. They just really are psyched that there are people that are willing to dig the hobby and wanting to start them off on the right foot. And I know I'm one of those folks, and Kevin's one of those folks. We got tons of great hat ambassadors out there that are more than willing to steer you in the right direction. But with that said, that there is no one size fits all when it comes down to hats and your hat journey. They're very much individual, in terms of what kind of hats you need to know, what kind of theme you want to have to your hat collection. And I just think there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to what kind of hat you collect. Even if it's a baseball cap and a trucker hat, as much as I'm not a big fan of them, at least in this stage of my life, that's okay too. And like, you're probably not going to see them too much on the Fedora Lounge, but that is okay. And if you're into only modern hats, I tend to steer more towards vintage hats. But even I do have modern hats, and I have some really great modern hats, regardless of whether it is modern or not. My Morris Homburg is probably a more modern hat. It is still beautiful to me. I have my Carmen Sandiego red hat that I got from Kevin Gerber. Actually, I had both of those hats from Kevin Gerber. I got my Knox Tom and Jerry from Kevin Gerber in terms of provenance. So anyway, thank you, Kevin, for providing me a chance to rehome those hats from your home to my home. I will cover. I've already covered the Moors Homburg on my last stream, but I will rock that Carmen Sandiego red hat. It's the most colorful hat I own. It's the most like out there hat that I own, but I have worn it in public. I've worn it at my DC Mets gatherings that I've attended, and it's an out there hat. Like, it's definitely not a stingy brim, although it's not a big brim hat. It's probably like 2 1/4 or 2 1/2 in length, so it's a pretty sizable brim. And I tend to wear my brims up. I just feel like for my face and my style, they tend to go. I think they look better that way. Sometimes, depending on how I feel that way, I will turn the brim down for that Carmen Sandiego hat, that red hat. But it's out there, maybe we'll see if I get requested to wear that hat by somebody. I will wear it on a future stream sooner rather than later. I will. At this point, given we do have like lower engagement, so this might be a better opportunity for me to interact one-on-one with folks that are viewing this. And if you guys have like a certain special request, definitely just put it out on the comments. Interact with me. I'm not gonna bite. I just want to engage and interact with my fellow hat people, and see what you're thinking about, or what is going on in your hat journey right now that might be of relevance. I mean, I might remind me of something and spark a conversation that would be beneficial to myself, beneficial to you to get my feedback, and also beneficial to the greater hat community that happens to watch this video either live when it's live, or happens to watch later on because they happen, somehow the YouTube algorithm has suggested one of my videos on my channel to them. So you never know, like, right? It's like we never know what somebody else is going through in their individual hat journey and in life in general that is relevant, or maybe it's not relevant at all, right? We're all various stages of our lives where sometimes we start getting into health battles. Something else major is going on. I just had a move, which really impacted my hat journey because I had to rehome. Like I had to move my hat collection for the first time. And again, it really, like, I fashion myself a minimalist, but whatever that means to you, it might mean something different to me. But it really gave me an appreciation of just how many hats I own for my personal comfort. So I think I have too many hats. Luckily, I just, like, right away when I moved, I was able to rehome that bowler hat that I showed on the previous live stream. And you know, I will continue that process. And if I start getting an itch, or maybe somebody sees one of my hats and decides to, like, offer me more money than I know I could, like, they make me an offer I can't refuse in Michael Corleone terms, then more power to it. Who am I to fight that? You know, if somebody wants it more than I do, and are willing to pay, you know, a fair price for it, then shoot, I got no problem. Obviously, it's not going to be every hat. You know, for, like, instance, this hat will be, you know, this is one of my favorite hats, and I don't see this hat leaving my collection anytime soon. But it doesn't mean that other hats are going to be the same way. They all are babies. I love all my babies. I love them, and I'll tell you, I love them all the same, but it's not true. I don't think that's true for a lot of folks. I don't think and I'll without knowing, without the data, I will speak on behalf of probably others. We don't love all of our babies the same. We have favorites, and that's okay. I don't think anybody can begrudge us that. You know, I try to take care of them and I try to wear them all, but certain hats, like my Knox Tom and Jerry, like this hat, like my Moore's Homburg, and that Borsellino velour, we have our favorites, and you know, that's probably why I chose to share them first. But with that said, I think I'm approaching the 2-hour mark on this live stream. I don't have, for those folks that are curious about, like, how long is this supposed to go? Like, how long is this gonna keep talking? I don't know. Like yesterday, I did a 1-hour long segment. The day before, I did an hour and a half. Until, like, this becomes like right now, it's very super organic and super malleable. And I mean, I still have a lot. I have one person that's still watching, and that's cool. But I think these hat chat segments will go as long as I can go comfortably. I'll find a stopping point, a natural stopping point, and then I'll close the show. And the show will no longer be live, but it'll still be uploaded. So, like, anything that you missed, like on the live show, you'll have access to. I try to read all the comments. So anybody that doesn't know myself, doesn't know Morgan Brown, who joined us today from Facebook, from Hats and Guitars, I try to read the comments, and that way, and you know, hopefully it doesn't offend anybody. But I just figures, like, I don't know how YouTube does the comments, to be honest. So for folks that don't see the live show, I try to read these things off. That way you can follow along and recreate the organic live stream that happened. And maybe that'll motivate you to join me on the next live stream. So if you want to join me on the next live stream or in a future live stream, this is what I'm going to recommend. I'm going to recommend, first of all, you like the video. You know, like the video, hit the subscribe button. That way you can have access and you can just, you know, help support the channel. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But I think the best way to kind of know is that way you're not privy to, like, having to see me advertise the live stream, is to subscribe and hit the notification bell. So it's that little bell next to the subscribe button. So after you hit it, it will go from subscribe to subscribe, and it might even give you a chime or something. but then you hit that little notification bell. And what happens is, if you're watching on your phone, or if you're watching on your computer or your tablet or what have you, what will happen is that you will get a notification. YouTube will send you a notification for every single time that I go live. That way you are able to watch me in real time if that's what you want to do. And anyhow, I am at the, well, I'll give it a second here, but now I am just hitting the 2 hour mark. So I'm thinking this is a good time to close. I think I just lost my my one viewer, but we had Morgan Brown here. I talked about my Dobbs Homburg, my gray Homburg from 1957. Yeah. So for you you nerds that love pre-1960, pre-Kennedy administration hats, this is one of them. This was the original hat receipt from 1957 from Jim Patterson Hats in Sacramento, California. And you can see it's a Dobbs 15. This person that bought this from Jim Patterson paid $15 to Jim Patterson Hats plus 60 cents tax. So $15.60. And they walked away with this shiny brand new Homburg, and it now belongs to me. So thank you to whoever sold me this Dobbs Homburg. I really love it. It's one of my favorite pieces in my collection. I wore it out on my walk today, and I encourage you to do the same. If you are shy about wearing your hats in public, hopefully this motivates you a little bit more. Morgan says she got motivated to get into Homburgs. Do it. I recommend you get, if you're into fedoras, if you're into baseball caps, trucker hats, and you want to wear a fine hat, get into fedoras, get into Homburgs, get into bowler hats, pork pies, and top hats, and straw hats even. Do it. Do it now. Don't put it off. I said, like I think a comedian famously said, procrastinate now. Don't put it off. Anyhow, I'm going to leave this here on that bad joke or great joke, depending on how you look at it. And this is Good Luke's. I'm signing off on Hat Chat number 7. And until the next Hat Chat segment, Good Luke says, stay hatting. Ciao.